Hey guys, welcome back. So I've got another Charge Blade video just as I promised. And this time we're taking on SEREGIOS, but we're honestly going to be focusing on the Savage Axe playstyle instead of Amped Elemental Discharge, because in my opinion, this is a way better way to play Charge Blade, and it's safer and it delivers way more consistent damage. The issue with Super Amped Elemental Discharge and Amped Elemental Discharge in general is that the critical hits don't apply to the explosions. That mostly scales off of elemental damage, which is fine, but with Savage Axe, we can take full advantage of the high crit rates of this build. And for this build, again, we're also running Mushroom Mancer 3 and Free Meal to keep up sustain and be able to dive right back into the fight after trading blows with SEREGIOS. So there's also some interesting tech in this video as well that I want you guys to enjoy and observe. So with that being said, let's get to the table of contents. Alright guys, so if you just want to jump straight into the equipment and decorations, you can skip to the timestamp below, but honestly I do recommend sticking around for the speed farming tutorial because we're going to be breaking down Savage Axe in detail and how to punish SEREGIOS' moves consistently to secure fast hunts. Because honestly, this is one of the best Charge Blade builds for farming SEREGIOS and even farming Talisman. It's comfortable to play and it's honestly a lot of fun whenever you are able to get the Charge Blade pizza cutter animations, like the little rhythm down. Alright guys, so the first step when approaching SEREGIOS is to put on the Ghillie Mantle and set down both a Shock Trap and a Pitfall Trap. Then afterwards, unsheath your weapon and get close to SEREGIOS. Because at this point, we're aiming for one of two outcomes. Either land a perfect block to activate your Savage Axe mode, or charge up both your sword and shield. Because with Savage Axe activated, you'll have access to your main damage dealer. But if you don't get your Savage Axe right away, a charged sword and shield will still let you apply steady pressure while waiting for an opening, whether it comes from perfect block, a wound, or a mount to get your Savage Axe online. Alright, now let's talk about the actual process for how you charge your sword. So the process starts with you charging your shield first, and then once your shield is charged, you immediately follow up by charging up your sword instead of your shield. So to do this, begin the shield charge animation, then press and hold triangle at the right time and release it to transfer the files into your sword. So with a charged sword, every attack will trigger extra file explosions that deal elemental damage. In this case, thunder damage against SEREGIOS. So once your sword and shield are both charged, the goal is to pressure SEREGIOS with your sword attacks while using Fade Slash to constantly reposition and close the gap, because this lets you stay right on top of him, deal solid damage, and keep your files charged all at the same time. So during this phase, you're simply waiting for the right moment, whether it's landing a perfect block or popping a wound, to be able to switch over into Savage Axe and unleash your main damage dealing playstyle. Alright, but just a quick heads up about the sword and shield playstyle. So in other matchups, one big advantage of this playstyle is that you'll be able to use your sword and shield mode to be able to charge and overcharge your files while you're attacking. So that necessarily means that even if you don't land a perfect guard, you can still block a monster's attack and immediately counter with super amped elemental discharge. So for example, in my previous Charge Blade build video against Legiacris, I showed you how his body slam move has enough end lag for you to block it and punish it with a super amped elemental discharge while you're in sword mode. So the issue with SEREGIOS is that it's different. Here, he's much more nimble and none of his attacks in his moveset have enough downtime for that kind of punish. But don't worry, this is a very favorable matchup for Charge Blade, and I'll show you why as we go deeper into the build. Alright, so now let's talk about Savage Axe. So the easiest way to activate it is by landing a perfect guard on one of SEREGIOS' move. And he has a lot of aerial moves that gives you plenty of chances to line up a perfect guard and immediately switch to your Savage Axe mode. And the best part is that even if SEREGIOS isn't targeting you directly, his large hitboxes still give you the opportunity to catch a perfect block and trigger your Savage Axe. Alright, now, once you activate your Savage Axe and gain the Axe buff, your moveset transforms into a high-powered chainsaw-like mode. So the first and most important attack to master here is the Axe Slam, and you can perform it by simply running forward and pressing triangle. So this move is incredibly strong because it acts as a great gap closer, covering a lot of distance, and the swings itself are a massive hitbox, hitting both above and in front of you, so it can clip SEREGIOS even when he's airborne. And on top of that, Axe Slam has very low end lag, letting you roll out immediately. And the icing on the cake on that is that it actually does serious damage, especially when you use the tick animation by holding the triangle during the animation to maximize the power. So you should really get in the habit of starting every trade, every engagement, every little battle, every whatever with this move. It is that good. It is S tier. Alright, now let's talk about dodging in Axe mode. So your movement here is noticeably slower, but it's actually not a drawback. It is a hidden strength, especially when paired with Evade Extender, because the slow walk animation gives you precision control, letting you line up exactly the angle you want before rolling. So the key is move slightly away from the monster, set your angle, and then time your dodge. As you can see, once Seregios attacks comes out, I simply roll away and then punish immediately with Axe Slam. And depending on the end lag of the attack that Seregios just performed, you may even have time to chain in a few extra hits. On the flip side though, if you're in Axe mode and you need to close the gap on Seregios, the best way to do that is by spamming your rolls with Evade Extender. So once you're in range, you finish the approach with an Axe Slam to both close the distance and deal damage. Alright now, so depending on Seregios' attack animations or end lag, you can follow up with Axe Slam with Elemental Discharge 1 and Elemental Discharge 2. So just make sure you're holding the button and timing your inputs correctly to activate the Chainsaw Tick effect, because it takes some practice to get down the rhythm, but once you do, it's extremely satisfying and adds a ton of damage. Okay, so now let's talk about Savage Max mode and when to use Rocksteady Mantle. So whenever you have your Axe mode and you have your Rocksteady Mantle available, you want to put it on because this lets you play much more aggressively and tank through Seregios' lighter hits and keep attacking without being interrupted. That said, you still want to dodge when you can because the more you get hit, the faster Rocksteady Mantle wears off, but you want to save it for when whenever Seregios is just doing like some light attacks like Claw Scratch. They don't deal much damage, but they do interrupt your moves, so it's often better to just eat the hit and keep swinging whenever you have Rocksteady Mantle open. Alright, so a really good way to optimize this hunt is how you handle knockdowns. So a good rule of thumb is that every time you get hit and knocked down, make sure you recover with your mount, because Seregios has attacks where it hits you whenever you get up and it can lead to a cart. So by mounting, you recover safely, heal, and stay in control. But don't just dismount normally, always use a mount attack, because over time, this lets you topple Seregios, move to his head, create a break or create a wound, and then use your mount attack to finish him off. And it's going to deal a lot of damage. And then on top of that, if your files are charged in that moment, you can unload a super amped elemental discharge for massive burst damage after the mount finisher. And finally, let's cover the safest way to use super amped elemental discharge in this matchup, because the best moment for you to do this is when Seregios has a blue wound. So at that point, charge up your files so they're ready, then break the wound. This will topple Seregios and also give you a Savage Axe buff. And then from there, unleash an amped elemental discharge first, then follow it up immediately with a super amped elemental discharge for a massive burst of damage. After that, continue the onslaught with Savage Axe mode to keep the punishment going. Alright, so let's do a quick build rundown. So for damage skills, we're running Critical Boost and Thunder Attack to maximize both raw crits and file explosions, plus Load Shells for extra file capacity and faster charging. So for Affinity, we've got Weakness Exploit level 5, Latent Power, and Maximum Might level 3, giving us consistent crit uptime throughout the fight. And on the utility side, we're packing Mushroom Mancer level 3 and Free Meal for Sustain, along with Stamina Surge and Evade Extender 2 for mobility. And finally, for Sharpness Management, we're running Razor Sharp and Handicraft. Altogether, it's a strong mix of damage, crit consistency, sustain, and good quality of life, making it one of the most practical Charge Blade setups for farming Seregios in particular. Alright guys, well here's the equipment, decorations, talisman, reinforcements, and everything you need to copy this build, copy this playstyle, and copy this hunting setup so you can farm your talisman and get all the material that you need for your overpowered builds. Expect a lot more Charge Blade videos to come, and then we're going to move on to a few different weapons. If you guys have any specific weapons that you need, builds, or monster hunting guide requests, just let me know and I'll get to it. We're also going to branch out of, we're going to still be uploading Monster Hunter content, but we're also going to be including more games eventually. So stay tuned for that. All right, you guys, I hope you guys have fun playing the game. Take care and stay safe.